Hi. Cool. We going? Yeah. Nice. Hi. My name's Carter. This is going to be my video diary journal, whatever you want to call it, because a couple weeks ago I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So instead of keeping everything bottled up and running things through the man upstairs a million miles an hour, I'd rather just have a way to kind of get it all out there and hopefully help me process this whole thing. And at the same time, if somebody else is going through this, hopefully you can use it as a way to get some information, calm your nerves a little bit. Because one thing I've learned now that I'm officially in the thick of it, really not as scary or as tough as I initially thought it was going to be. So I'd like to just start at the beginning and then kind of go up until present day today, just fill you in on everything that I've gone through. Like I said, it's been about a month since I was officially diagnosed, but this actually started about a year ago. I was in the shower, washing myself down there and noticed a lump. That's not very good. Decided to go to a doctor, and they said, well, what you need to do is find a urologist, and then they're going to order you some labs. They check something called tumor markers, and then you have to get an ultrasound on your balls. And I know that might sound weird, but honestly, super normal experience, very non-invasive. Dare I say, it kind of feels good in a weird way. Not a that way, but it's a relaxing experience. I'll just leave it at that. So I was lucky enough to have I was seeing a psychiatrist at the time who used to be a urologist, and I was just kind of like letting him know what was going on. And he was like, hey, I actually used to work at MD Anderson. I know everybody there. I can put in a reference for you. So I'm very lucky that I get to work at an MD Anderson, which is one of the best cancer research facilities in the country. So I'm fortunate in that regard. But anyway, going back to that, they ordered the tumor markers and the ultrasound for me. Tumor markers came back normal, but the ultrasound showed that I had a solid mass. They said that's not very good. That usually indicates cancer. We would like to get you in for an orchiectomy, which is a surgery for the removal of the testicle. Before I go, further on, I also just want to say that was a huge gut punch to me. That sucked. I couldn't believe I was going to go through life with only one testicle, but I quickly realized that it's just a medical procedure. It doesn't really change anything. It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't really even change your day-to-day life. Your sex life stays the same. Testosterone stays the same. It is, it sucks, but it is totally not a big deal. So if you're having to face an orchiectomy, just know that, I empathize with you, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. But at the same time, you're going to be okay. There's a lot worse things that can happen to you. So a little bit of lore here. I didn't have health insurance at the time. I was doing everything out of pocket because the insurance that I could get was absolutely crap, and I found it cheaper to, pay for things out of pocket. And I actually remember saying at one point, if I get cancer, I get cancer. Kind of as a joke, but look how that turned out. But anyway, so I had to get some health insurance quick because obviously can't really pay for this out of pocket. So there was about a month after they told me they wanted to have the orchiectomy, a month until I actually got health insurance. And then I was covered. I went in for the orchiectomy, but because a month had gone by, they actually said, hey, it actually looks like you might be fine. The tumor markers still weren't elevated. They actually put me under, which is the only downside of that. Like, the countdown from 10 and then you're knocked out. So I woke up expecting the surgery to be done, and they were like, yeah, we didn't operate on you because there is a possibility that this isn't cancerous, and we don't want to, do a permanent surgery unless we're 100% sure. So, that was a little bit tough to deal with because, there was a large part of me that just wanted to get it over and done with and put this part of my life behind me. And now I have to go for all these follow-ups. So I went to my first 2 follow-ups, and everything was still normal. And at this time, I had gotten a new job, and I was like, well, now I'm going to make sure I get on health insurance. And instead of just switching my health insurance with my urologist, I just said, hey, they said I'm fine. I'm just going to not go to my final checkup. And at that point, they would have probably scheduled me for more checkups, but I was sick of it. They kept telling me I was normal. I was a little bit angry with them too because why did you scare me so bad? Blah, blah, blah. And all this is on me, and that's my advice to you is if you're, I mean, it's not worth it putting your risk or your life at risk. Like, just go to the follow-ups. It's like huge regret. I really, really wish I wouldn't have stopped going because it would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering. Instead, what ended up happening is I didn't go to that final checkup. I stopped going altogether. I was on new insurance. I was like, they keep telling me I'm normal. I'm just going to go back to living my life. And about 2 months ago, I'd always check myself and, see if I could, notice anything that felt super wrong. And about 2 months ago, I was actually noticing some discomfort that was associated with that same lump. Excuse me. Which, that was obviously a huge bummer. I was like, oh, great. I'm going to have to go back in. So I called my team up. I said, hey, I think it's back. I think it might be worse this time. So they ordered me some more tumor markers and another imaging. And sure enough, I got a call the next day and they said, hey man, yeah, your tumor markers are actually quite elevated. The imaging shows that the mass has grown. We want to get you in for a CT scan and we want to schedule your orchiectomy. So that was a bummer. Again, could have been prevented. It could have been prevented if they just would have operated me on the first time, but I have to accept my role in this as well. It would have been prevented if I would have been on top of my follow-ups, because they were just doing their job. They were being good doctors and I was being a bad patient. So again, don't be like me, okay? So I go in for the CT scan, and they had told me before that, they're like, I mean, there's still a chance that it's just localized in your testicles and that we can just do the orchiectomy, remove the testicle, and then that's it. But the CT scan showed that it had spread to my lymph nodes, really just one lymph node in my abdomen that was swollen, which is almost best case scenario for the cancer that is spread, because when we're in utero, when we're a fetus and growing, our testicles actually grow in our stomach. So there's a pathway there, and it makes perfect sense that that's the first place that it will spread to. After that, it can go to your back, it can go to your lungs, it can even go to your brain, which is what happened to Lance Armstrong, the bicycle guy who's now kind of a... I don't know exactly where we stand on him, if he's a hero or not, but yeah, obviously he got himself into some hot water. But anyway, I digress a bit there, sorry. Yeah, the CT scan showed that it was in my lymph node, just in the abdomen. And the biopsy, well, I'll slow down here a little bit. So that meant chemotherapy. There is a surgery that they can go into. It's a very invasive surgery. It's much worse than the orchiectomy. So they said, hopefully what happens is we can just go in or not go in and kill it with the chemotherapy. And the reason they say that is because the type of cancer that I have, and this will be different for everybody. There's lots of different types of cancers that you can get that are associated with testicular cancer. I got, for the most part, lucky. I got 90% lucky, 10% unlucky. When they did the orchiectomy, and I'll talk about that in just a second too, what that experience is like. When I got the orchiectomy, the biopsy or the pathology report showed that the tumor that was in my testicle was 90% yolk sac cancer and 10% teratoma cancer. Now, the yolk sac, the 90%, incredibly reactive to chemotherapy. Like, kills it almost every time. Really, 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 really good job. It does a good job on that specific type of cancer. The 10% teratoma, not so much. Doesn't really react to chemotherapy at all. So what, best case scenario is it's spread and it's the yolk sac that spread and not the teratoma, which is likely considering that, it's 90% yolk sac. But even if there's a little bit of teratoma in there, they're probably going to have to cut me open by the stomach and remove it that way. So really hoping we can avoid that, but that's one of those things that time will just tell. So now I want to talk a little bit about the orchiectomy, because that's not a very fun surgery. But at the same time, there's definitely worse surgeries out there. They do not cut you through the balls. That's a common misconception, one that I had myself. They make about a 3 to 4 inch incision above and to the side of kind of like where your pubic hair line starts. And then they go in from the top and from the side and they remove your testicle that way. So you're not going to have a big scar on your nutsack. You're going to have it kind of like off to the upper side. I'm not going to show you the incision, but you can look it up and if you're really that interested. I'm lucky enough that my parents live about 15, 20 minutes away from me, so they were able to put me up into a recliner and kind of wait on me, hands and feet, which was, I'm very thankful to them for mostly my mom. My dad, my mom's a very motherly person. She was doing about 90% of the work. Um, that experience is really, really rough for about the first 3, 4, maybe into the 5th day. It can be pretty painful. It can be pretty scary. It's really easy to like move wrong, tweak, or like if you cough or sneeze, it's pretty painful. But once you hit that like 3 to 5 day mark, you heal pretty fast. So I only had to stay there for about I think I left back to my place on the 7th day, and I was able to completely take care of myself, walking around no problem, bending over, picking things up no problem. The only thing that I couldn't quite do was lift anything heavy. But other than that, pain was gone for the most part. I was just taking Tylenol and ibuprofen, a couple times a day, and barely even noticed it. I'm now 4 weeks removed from that, and I'm back to not picking up super heavy things, but I would say I'm close to like 90 to 97% back to normal. Honestly, the hardest part about that, and this is a little gross, but the muscles that you use to push to go number 2 to make a bowel movement are right there. So it's really, really hard. I didn't poop for 5 days. I didn't even try because it hurt too bad and I didn't think I would be able to. My recommendation to you would be to at least try every day. If you have an orchiectomy, at least sit on the toilet and try. Take your stool softeners, laxative if you need it, because trust me, you do not want to go 5 days without pooping. That was the most miserable part about the entire orchiectomy. If I would have just been able to take a shit, it would have been a piece of cake. So there's that. But overall, again, I just want to say that I haven't noticed any real difference only having one testicle. I don't feel less of a man. It's just a medical procedure that I had to go through. And if you have to go through it too, just know that, there's a ton of people out there that are in the same boat as you. There's even like some communities online. They call themselves One Nut Wonder, that sort of thing. It's, some people are proud of to be honest, I'm kind of proud of it. I don't know if I'd flaunt it around, but like, it's certainly nothing to be ashamed of. It's kind of a unique, something that not a lot of men, we're what do they call it? I don't remember the expression. I'm blanking on it right now, but it makes us interesting. Okay, so the last and final thing I want to touch on is the chemotherapy. Now, for pretty much all forms of testicular cancer, if you're going to do chemotherapy, it's going to be, it's called a BEP cycle. And I have the drugs here so I can pronounce them right. The B, the E, and the P are just the names of the chemo drugs that they're giving you. The B is called bleomycin, okay? The E is called etoposide, and the C is called cisplatin. So those are the 3 drugs that you're getting, and they're kind of spread out. It's a relatively rough chemo. But I will say, I'm only 2 days in, but I will say that so far, it's been pretty much a walk in the park. And how it goes down, and this is pretty consistent for everybody, a cycle consists of 5 days of infusion. The first day, you're getting B, E, and P. You're getting all 3 of the drugs on the first day. Then you come in the next day, and you just get the EP, and you do that for the next 4 days. So 5 straight days. On the first day, you're getting B, E, and P. On the next 4, you're just getting EP. Then you have Saturday and Sunday off, and you come back again on Monday, and you get just the B, bleomycin. And then you have that whole week off, and you come back again on that next Monday, day 15. Is that right? Yeah, so days 1, 8, and 15, you're getting the B, and then days 1 through 5, you're getting the E and the P. If you have any questions, here, leave a comment or something, but I'm sure if you're going through it, you probably have a pretty good understanding of it yourself. So at the end of those 15 days, that's the end of the cycle. Then you wait a week. I guess technically at the end of that week is the end of that cycle. And you start the whole process again 3 weeks, 21 days later from your very first day. I am considered intermediate risk because of my tumor markers. I'm actually right on the cusp of low risk and intermediate risk. Low risk is about a 90 to 96% 5-year survival rate. Intermediate's about 80 to 85% 5-year survival rate. And the way that they tell that, is your tumor markers. And your tumor markers, it's going to be different for each type of cancer. For the one I have, it's called the alpha theta protein tumor markers. And I'll try to put some information on the screen if I can remember. But essentially, if your tumor markers are 1,000 or below, you're low risk. If your tumor markers are 1,000 to 10,000, you're intermediate risk. So my tumor markers were 1170. So on the very, very low side of intermediate risk. However, because there was such a quick turnaround from my first tumor markers and then, a very quick turnaround from my orchiectomy to when I started chemo, only about 2 weeks, 3.5 weeks, sorry. That wasn't a lot of time for my tumor markers to go down. The standard wait time is about 5 weeks is when you'll see like the biggest drop. But they didn't want to wait just in case it was going to spread. So I actually got my labs done yesterday, which yesterday was my very first day of chemo, and they had dropped under 1,000. So technically I could be considered good risk. Low risk. They still want me to, they're still planning for the 4 cycles, but it's one of those things where technically now I'm on the high side of low risk instead of the low side of intermediate risk. So there's a chance that I'll only have to do 3 cycles. But if I have to do 4 cycles, and this is for anybody, each cycle is only 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks to live the rest of your life. You do have body autonomy, so advocate for yourself and speak up. But I would advise to try to find a balance between advocating for yourself and also listening to your doctors because they do know best. So yeah, that's about where I'll leave it. I'm feeling great. No real side effects yet. I know that, and if you don't know this is good to know. Chemo is one of those things where the longer you're on it, the worse it is. It's, kind of the opposite of everything else where it's like really hard at the beginning and it gets easier. This is relatively easy at the beginning and it gets harder. Good way to look at it is like going on a drinking bender. If you drink all day one day and then you stop, you don't feel great, but it's not as bad as if you drink for a week straight and then you stop. Now you have the shakes and it's really, really bad. And alcohol is a poison, and so is chemotherapy. They're literally both poisons to your body. So the longer they're in your system, the harder it becomes to fight it off. And I know, but if I have to do that 4th cycle, it's going to be pretty rough. But for now, and I'll keep making these videos, and you'll see my progress. As you can see, I still have my luscious locks. Eventually, I will lose that. So, you'll see how I change both physically and hopefully mentally too. Actually, that is the last thing I would like to touch on is, make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally as well, because that is one of the most important things of recovery is, your mental health. My hospital has psychologists on site that I'm absolutely going to see. I'm going to try to hang out with my friends as much as I can. I'm going to be playing video games with my brother. I'm actually going to start streaming some video games, or at least making some videos of it, so keep your eye out on this channel for that as well. I just rented a violin. I'm going to be taking some violin lessons. It's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I'm out of work right now because of this, so I actually finally have the time. So, if you are going through this, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself mentally, because that's a huge part of this entire battle. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me get all this out into the open air. I really appreciate it. And I will see you soon. Bye.